Drake Bell, once Nickelodeon's golden boy, stood before the judge, pale and defeated. In 2021, he pled guilty to a crime we cannot even mention on YouTube, admitting that he had crossed a line that no fan could ever forgive. A star turned criminal, his name was suddenly etched into headlines for all the wrong reasons. For millions of people who grew up watching Drake and Josh, this wasn't just news. It was betrayal. How did the boy who sang the infamous song called "I Found a Way" become the man whose life spiraled into darkness? To understand his fall, we have to rewind, back to Nickelodeon, back to brotherly banter, and back to the story that defined a generation. In 2004, Drake and Josh hit Nickelodeon like lightning. Spun off from The Amanda Show, it paired Drake Bell, the smooth-talking guitarist heartthrob, with Josh Peck, the awkward, comedic brother. The formula worked. Overnight, they became household names. For kids, this was more than a sitcom. It was laughter after school, comfort on weekends, and a mirror of teenage life. And at the heart of it all was the theme song "I Found a Way," written and sung by Drake himself. That song carried the promise that no matter how tough life got, friendship could make it through. But behind the smiles and catchphrases, the cracks were already forming. Drake was living fast, reckless, and arrogant. Even as Nickelodeon minted him into a teen idol, he was building the habits that would lead him down a darker path. The fame hit hard. Co-stars and insiders described Drake as difficult, egotistical, and constantly chasing attention. Unlike Josh, who eventually lost weight, reinvented himself, and focused on acting craft, Drake was the archetype of a child star burning too hot. Then came 2005. A devastating car crash almost unalived him. His jaw was shattered, his teeth knocked out, and his skull fractured. Surgeons rebuilt his face with titanium plates. Most people would have slowed down after such trauma, but for Drake, it only hardened his recklessness. He returned to Drake and Josh, but determined to keep his cool guy image alive. This brush with death didn't ground him. It only cemented the idea that he was untouchable.
Summer of 2006, it was about, I think, the third season of Drake and Josh. We were right in the middle of it, and I had this 1966 black Mustang. I got it when I was 17. I loved this car. It was black with black and white pony interior, and I was just coming at full speed directly towards us. And I look at my friend and I say, hey, is this guy not stopping? Is he gonna stop? Is he gonna stop? Is he gonna stop? Whoa, whoa. And he just plowed right into us head on.
As Drake and Josh wrapped in 2007, Drake leaned into music. With Nickelodeon fading, he tried to reinvent himself as a pop rock star. He released albums like It's Only Time, which had modest success, especially in Mexico, but in the US his music career never truly took off. Still, fans from the show followed him, filling small venues, buying merch, and holding on to nostalgia. For Drake, music wasn't just passion, it was survival. Without acting offers pouring in like Josh Peck had, Drake's guitar and his voice were his lifeline. But the music industry was brutal, and his reckless spending and poor management left him financially unstable. By the age of 27, Drake filed for bankruptcy, claiming nearly $2.166 million in debt and is worth $1.575 million in real estate and an additional $10,500 in personal property. The Nickelodeon fortune was gone. This identity shift wasn't just branding. It was escape. In Mexico, Drake was adored, and the controversies of his past were blurred by distance. He claimed he'd found his real audience, that this was where he belonged. But critics saw it as running. Running from the US industry that had left him behind. Running from his crumbling reputation. Running from the truth of what he had become. As Josh Peck moved into mainstream Hollywood, Drake's jealousy grew. Their relationship fractured. In 2017, Drake publicly lashed out at Josh for not inviting him to his wedding, tweeting, "True colors have come out today. Message is loud and clear. Ties are officially cut." Fans were devastated. The brotherly bond they idolized on screen was shattered in real life. Josh later revealed on his podcast that Drake had been a difficult presence in his life for years, and their relationship was not what Nickelodeon fans believed.
And then there were times when, not for any reason, but just like when, you know, when you are working with somebody that every day, day in and day out, and you're going through stuff at home or emotional thing, you know, just things that, you know, and then they come out with the person, you know, it's like you take it out on whoever the one next to, whoever's closest to you and with you the most often, you know. It's
in
like
2021, Drake was arrested and later pleaded guilty to charges stemming from inappropriate messaging with an underage person. The allegations described grooming behavior and exchanges that crossed legal and moral lines. The shock was visceral, a beloved teen idol accused of exploiting a fan. The courtroom outcome and the public reaction permanently altered how audiences remembered his old performances. Drake Bell admitted guilt to 1 felony and 1 misdemeanor related to attempted child endangerment and disseminating harmful material to juveniles. He was sentenced to probation and required community service. Though he avoided prison, the conviction was a watershed. The legal record is stark. A public fall that turned nostalgia into scrutiny. That confession reframed everything. Clips that once felt safe suddenly carried a different weight. The theme song echoed in a new key. Viewers who loved Drake and Josh now had to reconcile childhood memories with a headline. The dissonance left many unsettled, a reminder that pop culture and real lives aren't the same thing. And then, in a late twist that made the whole saga darker and more complicated, Drake went public about his own abuse. In the investigation Discovery docuseries Quiet on Set and in interviews that followed, he alleged that as a teenager he was essayed by a dialogue coach, Josh Peck, a man who had previously been convicted. Drake described being manipulated and assaulted while still a minor on Nickelodeon set. That revelation didn't excuse his own crimes, but it forced a painful reframe. A boy scarred by abuse, later becoming an adult who also harmed another. The industry's failures and the culture of silence became part of the explanation, not the justification. Drake Bell's story is messy and human and undeniably tragic. It's about fame and fracture, about a song that once promised a path and a life that took many wrong turns. It's about victims and perpetrators, causes and consequences. In the end, the bright memory of Drake and Josh sits alongside a darker truth, one that forces fans, colleagues, and the industry to ask uncomfortable questions about power, protection, and accountability.